Ugh. Ugh. So, yeah, this is gonna be a deck profile. I've been playing around on DN a bit, so, this is gonna be a water deck profile. Pre-Shining Victories, because I don't really know what, well, I know what's coming out in Shining Victories, but I don't exactly know how that'll influence the meta as of yet. Remains to be seen. But yeah, so far I'm 10th on DN, which is pretty interesting. Um, to be honest, like with water, I played it. Um, I mean in general, I'm just playing kind of casually on DN. It's not like I'm playing in real life or anything. I have most of the deck in real life. Um, just because I thought in case I wanted to play again, I'll just get a deck, and Mermail was the easiest one for me to access. I already, well, a friend of mine had pretty much the whole deck, so um, so I thought that was easier than uh, having to decide on a new deck and buy a new deck from scratch. All I had to really get was like princes and anything after Duelist Alliance, I think. Um, so I was playing it casually before the ban list, and I I don't know. I think I was consistently like 1650 rated. Um, Sometimes would push to mid 1700s and sometimes drop to 1500s, but generally I'd hold that 1600 spot quite well. Um, so I mean it's all right. Like I don't think too much of the top 10 thing, but I thought it'd be interesting to make a video on. It'll probably attract attention if I if I say it's a top 10 on DN deck. The thing that is funny about that though is I haven't been playing this deck at all, this format really. Um, I I literally only started playing it yesterday. Um, After the ban list, I mean. So since the ban list, I've been playing uh, Draco Pals a lot, and with that, I was kind of chilling around 1,000 raid, which isn't that great. uh, I mean, I thought the deck was doing alright, and then I loaded up this and just kept winning. And within not too long, I was in the top 10 on the site. I was I was 8 before I went to sleep, and now I've just woken up on 10. So I don't know if that means anything to you. You're like, wow, this is a top top duelist or something. Then fair enough. But to me, the top 10 on DN thing is arbitrary. I could do a real life deck profile with the actual cards, and I probably will. I have everything except 3 Gameciel, which I need to get pretty badly because that's a very important card in a lot of decks this format. Um, and a couple of extra deck things. Uh, but yeah, I might take this deck to nationals. Um, if I do, I'll do a real life deck profile around that time. Uh, I might just do one a couple weeks after Shining Victories anyway, just once I've settled on a build for that environment. But this is kind of the like pre-Shining Victory, just post ban list deck profile because to me, this is I wouldn't say like the best build. There isn't an objectively best build, but it's been a lot of fun playing this deck, and it does what it's meant to do really quite consistently. It's got a good little niche in the meta game. So yeah, I'll probably for this one I'll probably just do a really long video where I explain a lot of things in depth. And for the one where I use the cards in real life, that whenever that is, I'll probably split that into different parts. But with this one, I don't really think I'm gonna I'm gonna be splitting it into different parts because I've just woken up, so it's probably gonna be a stream of consciousness deck profile. Yeah, so just go through the list then. 3 Prince, 3 Infantry, 2 Dragoons, 2 Marksmen, 3 Megalo, 3 Tius, 1 Gund, 1 Lind, 1 Lead, should be that way around. 1 Pike, 1 Turge, 3 Gameciel, 3 Maxi, 3 Undine, a Controller, Diva, and Mulan. Then 3 Instant Fusion, 1 Scale, 1 1-for-1, 1 Raigeki, and 1 Sphere. Then for the extra, 2 Dweller, 1 Spider Shark, 1 Honor Arc, that rhymed, 1 Dracossack, 1 Gaios, 1 Big Eye, 1 Nightmare Shark, and 1 Grampulse. For Synchros, 1 Tatsunoko, 1 Stardust Charge Warrior, 1 Black Rose, 1 Trishula, and then for fusions, a Norden and a Thousand Eyes. Then the side deck's kinda, well, I mean, it is pretty good. There are a couple random things that might control in TT, but generally it's pretty good. So 3 Flying Sea, 3 Fog King, 2 Dark Hole, 2 System Down, 3 Twin Twisters, and then just as a couple of cheeky bits of fun and mind control in a TT. So I guess with Mermails in general and the niche they find themselves in this format, you have to look at it in terms of like, well, what can the deck do uniquely that you should focus on, because it obviously isn't the best deck. It isn't in the top 3 best decks. Probably is in the top 5. You could debate as to which is better between this and Draco Powers or Pendulums, and really again better depends on the context, because a free soul charge every turn is obviously pretty dumb, but being able to kill someone instantly is also pretty dumb. So with that in mind, the fact that this deck isn't the best, you do have to compare it to the best decks, which I would say are Monarchs, BA, and Cosmo. Not necessarily in that order. Yeah, you kind of just have to compare this deck to that and evaluate what those decks can do better and what this deck can do better. So, what are the good things about Mermail this format? And I might just do like separate videos in general discussing this. I was gonna do like my thoughts on Mermail, my thoughts on pendulums, and maybe just a few other things, because particularly with the pendulum deck, I didn't really just want to give a deck profile or a list. I wanted just to explain how I feel the deck should be played, or advantages of playing one over the other, and just my general thoughts on the direction that the deck will find itself going in this format. Although I don't really know, post Shining Victories things could change. So yeah, there might be a similar kind of discussion in a different video, but within this video, yeah, we'll look at what can water do well that other decks just can't do. So one of those things is a very consistent way to deal 8k, which is just Prince and a water in hand. Obviously you need Dragoons in deck, at least 1 Dragoons in deck. So for those of you that don't know, all you have to do is just summon Prince, mill drag, add, well, you're probably gonna add another drag if you can, if not just any Atlantean. Then drag adds Megalo, or if you already have Megalo, just any other discard fodder. And pitch 2 for Meg. Meg searches scale. Megalo sack Prince. Prince get Dragoons back. And that's 8-2. So yeah, the deck has a very, very consistent means of dealing AK on an open field. Kind of comparable to the way that Cosmo can consistently kill with Farm Go, but this is obviously much more consistent strategically speaking. Farm Go needs more cards, as well as it relies on the game state being a certain way much more than Prince does, because it needs to attack in order to generate the OTK, while this doesn't need to attack as a part of the means of getting the OTK. All you need is a Prince and a water in hand. So yeah, that's I would say is probably the biggest advantage to playing water, or the thing that stands out most about this deck with regards to deck building is just that you do have Prince, you have a one card kill switch, and a lot of what you do will be structured around try just trying to kill them. I call this deck kill or be killed, because that's what it is. You have to kill the opponent or you die. But I guess I'll talk about that a bit more later. Other nice things. Dweller mattering more in this deck than any other deck. Firstly, this deck, I would say it's the best one for making dwellers in this format. I know that there are certainly other decks that can make rank 4s more consistently, but they'll probably be benefiting the least off Dweller in terms of just what the card is doing for them. They're likely to not be getting the attack boost, and certainly aren't going to have Dragoons as material, which is huge. While with this deck, firstly, it makes Dweller super consistently. And Dweller's a very, very good card this format. It's good enough to just make turn 1 blind, like if you're forced to. Just make a Dweller and pass. And against a lot of the, well, against the big 3, that'll likely be enough just to buy you another turn. Maybe just hold their plays. But you know, Dweller hits pretty much everything right now, except for Dracossack. I mean, it hits some aspects of the dark build, but not really. But yeah, this deck makes Dweller like it's nothing, and also gets the most off Dweller in terms of like all of the effects are relevant. Detaching to search is super relevant, but gaining 500. Well, knowing that Dweller will always be 2-2, rather than sometimes being 2-2, is, again, very relevant. And having all your waters gain 500 is also super relevant. Megalo that can attack twice, plus Dweller with a water as material on an open field is game. It's exactly 8k. So, yeah, Dweller is another advantage to the water deck, along with Prince being just an 8k kill switch, because you can not only make Dweller really easily, you gain the most positive externalities, or the greatest number of positive externalities regarding Dweller than any other deck, and Dweller is a good card this format. So those things, you know, make Mermail a pretty interesting shout. I mean, there are other benefits. Obviously, like you could look at the rank 7s as a benefit, because I don't think any other deck really uses rank 7s right now. And you could look at, you know, like Moulinglacia as a benefit. With Moulinglacia, I would say that it, again, comparing it to all the other decks, Monarchs have a better niche of hand manipulation, because while Mulan is just discard 2, Monarchs can also do that. Turn 1, if they resolve Mithra or what's it? Seraphonite. Yeah, I forgot Seraphonite's name for some reason. Then yeah, you can potentially like resolve Erebus twice or Thestalos. Thestalos, I would say, is worth more than Mulan, even though Mulan discards 2. Being able to pick the card that you're discarding is much more valuable than randomly discarding 2. So as far as the hand screwy aspect goes, I wouldn't look at that and say, oh, this is certainly a reason to play water because Mulan is good. Yeah, like Mulan is good, and being able to screw with the hand is good. You do it a lot, but like even with lead, just pitching a card out their hand, you do it a lot again because you have a lot of access to Dweller, so it'll rarely be an issue of, oh, I need to um, make sure I don't discard their Burning Abyss in hand or something, because you'll just Dweller before if need be. But they're random, so I wouldn't say that they're the strongest example of hand manipulation in the format. If Monarchs weren't in the format, then yeah, you would say a unique boon to the Mermail deck is the fact that you can screw with their hand a bit, and you do. You know, there are times where you're forced to go first, and all you can really do is just try and you know, make like Dweller and, and Mulan and pitch a couple out of their hand. But yeah, again, before what I was saying is about like comparing it to all the other decks rather than just saying like, oh, uh, this deck has this thing which is nice. Um, uh, but yeah, so that's essentially the things that water has access to that are significant that the other decks don't really have access to. It's basically just strong dwellers and 8k and a couple of other nice things on top of that. So if you were to take this deck and look at just like the core, just the bare minimum cards, there's actually like quite a lot of space that you're afforded if you were to do that. So yeah, I will save changes. For the main, this is kind of just like everything that I would say you have to run. Even the third tiers you don't have to run. Um, I think it makes sense to run the third tiers, even though like the quality of the things that you're searching isn't great. Um, and you may very well get times where you just can't search off tiers because you're out of targets. Like Sphere burns through um, at least 2, hopefully, uh, assuming that Linda's in deck. So later on, being able to resolve tiers can sometimes be kind of iffy, but I would still run 3. It's too good. Just a non-normal summon discard outlet is strong. So this is pretty much everything that I would say you have to run, and from there there's obviously quite a lot of space to work with. So yeah, the deck is actually pretty versatile. You can build it in a lot of different ways. So I'll explain why I built it the way I built it. So like yeah, there is a lot of room for variation here. You can play it in a lot of different ways. Say like if you just wanted to run more high ceiling cards, I guess, like Soul Charge, I would say Sphere is a high ceiling card. I would say Gund potentially is a high ceiling card. Um, Maybe even like Surface as well. If you wanted to run more stuff like that, you could. Um, Really, it just depends on the format and building around the format. Because again, this deck isn't the best deck, and if your deck isn't the best deck, it's likely going to be teched out to counter what is the best deck. So last format we saw, pretty much for as long as I've been out of the game, we've been seeing pendulums as the best deck, and other decks having to build and tech around in order to beat that deck. Now is quite a unique position where um, Pepe just isn't the best deck. It's playable, but it it isn't the best. So they're now having to kind of tech out to beat other decks, while decks like Cosmo and Monarchs and BA, which previously might have had to forward spaces just for one particular matchup, now doesn't. Mermail Mermail sadly isn't the best deck, so you do have to look at the meta and what's popular and what affects you, and then structure what you are playing around that. So regarding the choices that I did make, firstly, I'll start off with no upstart actually. Um, seeing seeing upstart in Momo, it, I think that it is incorrect to play upstart in this type of water build, and by this type I mean one where Prince is still the main focal point, and that line of OTK is still the main focal point, because them being on 8k is actually really important for a lot of the ways that you're going to kill them. Again, the Prince kill, which is the most consistent way to kill them in the deck, is 8-2, or is generally going to be 8-2. At most, actually, it's 8-4 if you go on Marksman instead and got another Prince from the deck, assuming that you didn't add a Dragoons off Prince. But yeah, that's around 8k. Is less than 9k, and pretty much all of your OTKs are going to be less than 9k. So Upstart, I mean, this pertains more to Upstart being here in general, and why I didn't like Upstart being here is because everyone who said, oh, Upstart is just an auto include in every deck. No, it isn't. It's nowhere near an auto include in every deck. I didn't play Upstart in this last format either. Of course I didn't, because the same problem exists then as, or it existed then as it did now, which is that them gaining 1000 is important. And everyone who said stuff like, oh, Upstart breaks the game, it just breaks the rules because you can, like, everyone can play 37 instead of 40. No, it isn't, because it isn't just have 37 cards in your deck. Like, firstly, just the fact that it is a spell, it is a physical card, rather than just a mechanic, demonstrates that it isn't breaking the mechanic. Because if you can't resolve the card, then it isn't breaking the game. But even if, I mean, yeah, it's a normal spell, like, they aren't always gonna have a Neptabyss, and they aren't gonna, like, Hope Harbinger the upstart. But the 1000 is relevant. It's hugely relevant, and it presented decks with interesting choices regarding whether or not to give them that 1000, which within the context of this or a deck like BA, I would say is very relevant. But they hit because they know the way that they've been designing decks. It's like it's all combo focused. It's all brick or twist, and like having a 3 off in all of those kinds of decks was awkward for them. But regarding Upstart in this deck, I wouldn't run it because the 1000 is relevant. And regarding drawing cards, actually, it's interesting. I was thinking about this more last format when Upstart was at 3. I think that like additional copies of Undine are like Upstart, in that they they provide consistency, I guess. Like Upstart is the archetypal consistency card. Undine is more powerful, but within its context in this deck, it isn't. I mean, yeah, you could say it's a power card, but its function is more often than not consistency, because it's just there to supplement additional copies of prints, which you don't have. Obviously, like if you could run 10 prints, you would, but you can't. You can only run 3. So, however many Undines you run are meant to supplement the fact that you can only have a limited number of princes and won't always draw them. So it pretty much always being backups to Dragoons, and Dragoons itself being a searcher kind of makes Undines' function similar to Upstart in that it provides consistency in most of the time that it's applied. But that was just more of like an interesting thought process for me. I was also thinking that you could compare additional copies of Sphere to Upstart, because if you resolve more than one Megalo per game, the Megalo being able to search something is kind of just a free card at that point. And then that that thins the deck by 1, which is essentially what Upstart does. But yeah, Upstart isn't that great in this. The 1k isn't worth it. So going on to Undine from that, 3 Undine. I had people, I don't know, like yesterday I was playing a game, and there were quite a few people watching it, and they were like, oh, he's bad, he's playing 2 Undine. They didn't know I played 3 Undine. I think that firstly you should be playing at least one Undine, 1 controller, because it's semi-searchable off Pike. There are positive externalities to Undine, mainly that it can send prints, which is sometimes relevant. Get Dragoons back if you have a level 4 on the board, or can just get a Marksman back for a quick overlay. Say if you need to make this to push through some back row, or make Nightmare Shark for a cheeky 2k. Yeah, there are unique benefits to Undine and make it worth it to run at least one with at least 1 controller. But the reason why I run more than 1, so two is a good number, even if it's just 2 and 1, because then you have a really high chance of seeing it. You basically have like 5 good normal summons at that point, and only 1 dead draw. And the thing with like running more copies of Undine is that it isn't bad, because they're water. You can just pitch them. So even if they're dead draws, like you run more knowing full well that you're gonna resolve 1 at most. But it doesn't matter. All it does is affect the amount that you'll draw it, and therefore that you'll resolve the 1. It doesn't really have any bricking issues. So 2 is nice in that, like, if you run 1, you know, yeah, you can pitch it, but generally you're not going to pitch it if you draw it, or you'll try to avoid pitching it because you'd rather normal summon it. Like, you don't want to be adding it back with Turge later on or something. So if you run 2, then it means that you can more freely pitch one if you have one in hand. Like, you don't have to really feel bad. Oh, I have to ditch my Undine now. Because you have another one in deck to get off Pike, or the one in grave to get off Turge. And it just means that you're twice as likely to draw an Undine as you would otherwise be if you ran one. But still have the same chance of drawing a controller. So, you know, resolving Undine is cool. But then the reason why you'd run 3, the reason why I run 3 is because I want to maximize my chances of having a normal summon, like a good normal summon. Your good normal summons in this deck, well, you have the 3 Prince and Diva, right? So the difference between 4 good normal summons and 7, essentially, with the 3 Undine. Assuming that I don't draw controller, obviously, which you just have to hope for. There's nothing you can do about that if you do. Yeah, it's noticeable. It's a noticeable difference. I don't know the exact maths. If you want to be that guy to figure out the numbers, then go ahead. But just logically, I don't need to know the exact numbers to know that there's a noticeable difference between having 7 normal summons and having 4. Like, the way that this format is, and the way that this deck interacts in this format, like, games will last 2 turns at most, really. Generally, it's just over after a turn. The way this deck functions is you'll go second, try to clear the field to hit for game, and then hit for game. So with that in mind, yes, it's irritating if you have say an Undine and a Prince in hand, considering that I don't run Brilliant Fusion or Double Summon, and you can only summon one. Yeah, that is kind of annoying, but not as annoying as not having access to a good normal summon at all. So just having Undine means that you have plenty of ways to see a good normal summon on the first turn, and maximizes the chances of Dragoons hitting the grave, which maximizes the chances of good stuff happening for you. So yeah, three Undine, 1 controller it's pretty much standard, actually. Like, I know of a lot of people that play this ratio. I think that's a perfectly fine ratio. Again, like, depending on the way that the format is, of course you could play different ratios, but I feel that for the way things are right now, where you do just want to kill them as quickly as possible and you want to maximize the opportunities to do that, then running 3 Undine makes sense. Because regarding, like, the best normal summons that you could do in this deck, obviously Prince is the best, or Diva debatably, but Diva and Prince, we'll count them as the same thing for the purpose of this. Diva and Prince are obviously, like, the most favorable, and then the next most favorable after that is Undine. Even though Undine is worse than Prince, yeah, it's, you know, it's better than Pike as a normal summon. And then that just kind of leaves the 3 Gameciel, 3 Maxx. So there are plenty of other things that you could do with the space again. Like, you could run second gun is nice. So before the list, I ran I still have the 3 Maxi. The thing with Maxi that is great and lovely is that it stifles their momentum, which is very important, because if they, even if, like, turn 1, if they can make a huge field, which happens sometimes depending on the matchup, like, say BA, they just have a couple Beatrice or a couple Dante and a Beatrice, or against, like, Performer Pals, they make a huge field, or even in the mirror they could they can make like Dueler-Gaios. Dueler-Gaios is a cool field, but you know, just expand on the board. Um, that can present complications for you. Like I don't play a bunch of mass removal. I have Raigeki, but the dark holes aren't mained. I don't main like interrupted Kaiju slumber or anything. So having Maxx helps to just limit the extent that they can push. Like the fact that, you know, if you have Maxx, you know that turn one they aren't gonna have like a huge field by the end of it. They'll probably just, like, say NBA, they'll probably just make a Dante and pass, or maybe make a Beatrice and pass. In which case you're drawing all the more cards, and yeah, most decks will have to halt their plays on the Maxi, and that helps you because it makes it easier for you to kill them the next turn if they have a half established field. I mean, Maxi originally, like, last format for me, it was because I found that my matchup against Cosmo and Pendulums was not good enough, and Maxx kind of helped. It just helped against both. Against Cosmo, it would sometimes just be draw two, but like against Cosmo, the worst times will be when they just have Telly Telly and Phase or Strawman kind of plays, and Maxx helps against them just because it mitigates the extent that they're powerful. Like if they have a balanced hand, right, and you end up just drawing one off the Maxx, and that's fair enough because their hand was balanced. If they have a super broken hand and you have the Maxx, then you'll probably be drawing two, which which mitigates the extent that their hand was powerful. So Maxx has a lot of synergy with the way that this deck functions just by virtue of the fact that Mermails want the easiest time possible killing the opponent or getting a free field with which to kill them, and Maxx is very good at prompting the opponent to stop playing for the time being. So yeah, plus Maxx is just good right now. I think that Maxx will be a very important card this format because I think you're going to see a lot of decks just playing like turbo variations of themselves. Like we'll see the Fire King Cosmo variant. I think that the best way for BA to be played is Trapless right now. I think that Monarchs can do a lot of crazy stuff if they do play the Brilliant Fusion Xyz variant. I was playing the Exceed variant when the deck was still in OCG because I found that more fun than playing the main build. So you know, even against Monarchs, Maxx is just a break even. So Maxx is pretty good this format. I think that it will become more important as the format progresses. And then Gameciel has, or the Kaiju engine in general has more synergy with water as a deck than any other deck. Gameciel doesn't really fit into too many strategies that well, but it's a water, so it walks right into this. If it's dead, then you can just pitch it, and that's all great. But its function as removal is very important this format. So Gameciel's inclusion is like Maxx and Gameciel in general. It's not for like Cosmo and Pepe as it was last format. Now it's more like Cosmo and BA. Monarch isn't that difficult a matchup. I would say it's even. At worst, it's an even matchup. Um, sometimes it can be difficult. Like, the only real difficulty is if they have Stormfall set and Ether in hand. That's the only time where they'll really give you any trouble. If they don't have that, then generally you'll be fine, because you're not really too affected by domain or anything. So this is more for Cosmo and BA. Cosmo has always been a bad matchup. Like, it isn't an unwinnable matchup, don't get me wrong. It's very winnable. Like, I would say the extent that it's in Cosmo's favor is like, I don't know, maybe like 65-35 in their favor. It's not like, oh, you'll always lose, but yeah, they have the more favorable matchup. BA, like, when that started cropping up towards the end of last format, with the Jeff Jones PK Fire build, and it just made it just spammed Dante's because it didn't have Beatrice then. Like, that deck was no issue for this deck at all. Like, people have been saying that this deck has a bad matchup to BA. It doesn't. Like, it just doesn't. Um, like, this deck spams dwellers. It spams dwellers. How can you think that this deck would have a bad matchup against any deck that's as grave reliant as that? Um, the problem is Beatrice. Like, that's the one card that hurts you in that matchup, and that's just because it's disruptive. You know, you can't just summon a prince and go about your day, because they'll have an out. So, um, Gameciel's inclusion is both as a means of alleviating the Cosmo matchup, and also as a means of dealing with Beatrice. Because with the Beatrice gone, honestly, like, the BA matchup is not anything. It's not anything to concern yourself with. Like, it's not a difficult matchup. Literally the only card in that deck that 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 evens things up is Beatrice. Like, Beatrice is so powerful a card in and of itself that it swings the entire matchup from being completely in your favor to, I don't know, like 50-50. If they have a Beatrice and you can't clear it, then yeah, it's 50-50. But yeah, Gameciel is great for that. Like, I wouldn't say that Gameciel is a dweller out. I think that you should just be using dweller immediately right now, like in their standby phase, because of the popularity of Gameciel at the moment. So I would never really think like, oh yeah, Gameciel also doubles as a dweller out. Like, if they leave a dweller face up and then you go to main phase 1 and you sack Gameciel over it, it happens a lot, but that's their fault. Like, I wouldn't just say Gameciel is a dweller out, because having played exclusively decks that make dweller for the past couple formats, I would say that, you know, you should just be detaching for dweller as soon as possible in most instances, because Gameciel is main decked in not just water. You know, you see BA playing it as well. It's a good card. So between 3 Maxx and 3 Gameciel, you generally won't have to worry too much about having one of them for Cosmo, one of them for BA. Because again, like, if you have the Maxx against BA, they're probably not going to be making Beatrice in the first place. So it's kind of like a preemptive out to Beatrice. But even if they do make Beatrice, you're going to be drawing like 2 or 3, which should alleviate the advantage of Beatrice for that one turn. And if you have the Gameciel, then you don't have to worry about Beatrice disrupting you. The traps aren't really a problem. Again, back when everyone was playing PK Fire with Fogblade, like, Fogblade does nothing to this deck really. So if they play traps, they play traps. It can be annoying because you don't main deck. too many. Like, you don't main deck Twin Twisters, but yeah. And yeah, that's another thing. So last format I did main Twin Twisters. I main 2 and another Gund, because Gund is a Twin Twister synergy. I didn't play Gameciels. And again, that's because like last format it was Pepe and like trap based Cosmo. So with that in mind, you gained more out of Twin Twister, I felt, than Gameciel. Like, Gameciel doesn't do anything against Pepe. Twin Twisters is obviously just like game winning against them, and a lot of decks were playing traps, so having the Twin Twisters just to deal with strikes and all that wonderful stuff preemptively was very useful to have. Now the focus is a lot less on spells and traps and more on monsters. So Gameciel is just like the most flexible out to anything. Yeah, I feel that it is more advantageous to have that over Twin Twisters right now. Anything else from the main? The second Marksman is cool. Yeah, you don't have to run it, but I like having to. Then for the extra, again, like the extra, yeah, this is what I would say is essential. Stardust Charge Warrior firstly, like before people lose their minds. Stardust Charge is just based on the fact that, again, most of the time these matches will last like a turn or two. Well, these games will last a turn or two rather, not matches. So like you should run a level 6. The thing with Duloran, and bear in mind, like I like Duloran a lot. It's very cool. Its interactions with your cards, it's awesome. I like Duloran. I like Duloran's design. It's just the type of card that I love. But you don't gain as much out of it if your deck is designed to just kill in one turn. Like, I used to run multiple spheres, again just because it's a high ceiling card, and last format the games would last longer just based on the fact that some decks were more defensive, so you couldn't kill them as easily as I feel you can now with decks building themselves more aggressively, or they're likely to lean themselves that way. Like, Delorean is great when you can be bouncing spheres and all that jazz. But you aren't likely to be doing that now. So Stardust Charge is just interesting. I thought I'd try it because I figured, well, if you are just looking to kill them, then having draw 1 is likely to be better than Deloran's effect, even though Deloran has a great effect, obviously. I'm not sure what else would be viable to run in the 6th spot. Maybe Vulcan. Could try Vulcan, but Stardust Charge has actually been okay. It's just for the draw 1 card effect. Given that this deck is attempting to kill as soon as possible. Yeah, but yeah, Stardust Charge. I thought I had to explain that. So for the stuff that I would say you have to run, alright, 2 Dweller. You have to run at least 2 Dweller. You could run 3. I've been thinking about 3. Could very well run 3 at some point, but not right now. 2 Dweller. Spider Shark is good. It's great. Against Cosmo, you can make Dweller and Shark, and that's a big ship. The Shark's just pretty good in general, like walking Call of the Haunted, I guess. Because it's not really a reborn. It has to be in your grave. But yeah, that comes up every now and then. Just a 2/6 relevant flower is good. I think it's a good replacement to Bahamut Shark, but I guess I'll talk more about Bahamut Shark in a bit. 101, just good bit of removal. That is that is water themed. Run it over Castel as the mandatory bit because you get a search off this and not off Castel. Although you can run Castel. Dracossack, Gaios. You don't have to run Big Eye, but yeah, it's okay. Gaios and Dracossack are the only like mandatory ones. And Nightmare Shark, because you want to kill, and Nightmare Shark helps to kill. This is actually like the biggest reason to run Bahamut Shark in my opinion. It's just because Bahamut Shark lets you get into the Nightmare Shark more consistently, and with that it's more likely you'll be able to do plays with Nightmare Shark because you make rank 4s a lot more consistently than you do rank 3s. So if you run Bahamut Shark, you'll find more instances where you do kill through the Nightmare Shark. I don't mean through the shark itself. I mean like through Shark's effect. Like if you use Shark's effect on a Megalo that can attack twice, then that Megalo's gonna be attacking directly twice for 6/4 probably. Which is pretty good. So Bahamut Shark really just depends on the amount that you want to see this. And for me, I found that I wasn't making Bahamut too much for the sake of Shark. I found that I was just making it to make something, and then Trite isn't as good. It isn't as good in this variant where you don't have as many Mermails. And I don't know what else could be ran. Cat Shock isn't that great. Armored Kappa is okay, but I don't really want to run Armored Kappa anyway. It's not the best. Tatsunoko is great. Then one level 6. I wouldn't say it has to be Stardust Charge. It doesn't have to be level 6 as well. Like you could run a level 7 instead of a level 6. But one like mid-level one mid-level synchro, it would generally be Dulorin. But in this particular case I have Stardust Charge. Trishula, because Trishula is great, and Norden. So then how do we get to everything else? Thousand Eyes I just chucked in, like I haven't used it yet. Remains to be seen whether it's good or not. I played like Camion Wizard for a while just as an extra level 4, but I didn't make that either. Like you only make Norden in every deck. You only make Norden. You never make Thousand Eyes. So what else did I end up putting in? Big Eye I found to be useful just because of like Beatrice and Dante's and stuff like that. Like the popularity of BA as a deck makes Big Eye relevant. Because just stealing it kind of counts as removal. Grampulse. Grampulse is cool. 2/8 is a good defense stat, and being able to pop back row is useful. If you have Marksman as a material, then it'll be like detach 1 to pop 2, which is great. It basically turns it into like similar levels of Breaksword in terms of power. It's good card. So yeah, instead of running Bahamut Shark and Trite, I ran I guess Black Rose and Grampulse, because those are just cards that are good on their own, as opposed to, well, Trite doesn't do anything on its own, and Bahamut, like yeah, Bahamut gets Trite, but Trite isn't really that good
and again, like Armored Cap, all that stuff, I don't really like it. Then Black Rose. Black Rose is great. It's great. I think that 4 synchros with like 1-3, 1-6, 1-7, and 1 Trishula, it is good, because there are a lot of times where the 7 comes up. As to what you run for the 7, there are a lot of options. Odd Eyes Meteor Burst is cool for, I guess, like Cosmo and BA. Can be quite relevant. But Black Rose, I like Black Rose. I like Black Rose in a lot of things. It's just good at what it does. Comes in and blows everything up. The same way that Dweller plus Raigeki is a win condition. You can also say that Dweller plus Black Rose is a win condition, but it's just nice to be able to make it off Tatsunoko. So if you like normal summon, like you would need one of the level 4s in hand, obviously. So normal Diva, make Prince, pitch drag, add Meg, make Tatsunoko, make Black Rose, boom, and then drop some stuff and push the game. Yeah, Black Rose is great. And yeah, Thousand Eyes doesn't really do anything. Then then for the side, I played Kaiju Slumber. I think I might do a separate video discussing Kaiju Slumber, because it is going to be an interesting card to look at this format. I think the issue with Kaiju Slumber is that the decks that the card Interrupted Kaiju Slumber is good against is different to the decks that the monsters, like the Kaiju monsters themselves, are good against. So, like, Gameciel and the other Kaijus are good against Cosmo, BA, because their cards are either, well, no, they aren't. I don't think any of them are immune to destruction. But they benefit off destruction because they're floaters. They benefit off being destroyed. So the reason why the Kaijus are good is because they allow you to play around that. Kaiju Slumber is essentially just a bad dark hole. Like, it's dark hole plus you're going to have a monster at the end of it. Plus next turn you can add one from your deck to your hand, which is obviously much more powerful than just blow up all the monsters on the field. But then like, the cards that'll be good against, it's unlikely that you'll see a lot out of the Kaiju monsters in those matchups, because if a mass nuke card is good against them, then this stuff isn't really needed compared to that. Like, examples would be Monarchs, the Mirror, Performer Pals, where it's the Kaiju Slumber that is preferred. So half the time you'll prefer to have the Kaijus, and half the time you'll prefer to have the Kaiju Slumber. And then just by nature of what Kaiju Slumber is, it kind of forces you to play both. But not just both in terms of, like, you can't just run 3 Gameciel, 3 Kaiju Slumber. Has to be like 3 and then 1 that just a useless card. So Kaiju Slumber kind of has its own little paradox going on regarding its function at the moment. I don't know if I would say that for every deck. Obviously, it depends on the deck that you're playing and how Interrupted Slumber interacts within that. And again, this is bearing in mind that Water has more synergy with the Kaiju engine, in my opinion, than any other relevant deck. Certainly more than all the decks above it. So that complication to me reduces the extent that I would lean towards Kaiju Slumber. I have a lot of Kaiju Slumbers actually. Yeah. I have like 30 to my to my right. So this should be the point where I'm advertising them like, yeah, Kaiju Slumber's so good. It's a card that I like for sure. But for now, I think that disparity between, the fact that half of the decks you'd rather have the Kaijus and Slumber is useless, and the other half Slumber is OP and the Kaijus are useless, um, creates a bit of a complication. But yeah, I could very easily just end up putting the Kaiju Slumbers back in because it is so good. Even in this deck alone, just the fact that you can search Gameciels later and that's just free discard fodder. Or the fact that Kaiju Slumber becomes recovery later on in the game by searching Gameciels. Yeah, it's clutch. But for now, I just went with 2 Dark Hole, and there aren't chalices because I don't feel like it's too needed. Obviously, you can make room for it, but I lost 4 hours because Performer Powers were always going to be making Dweller, and the mirror could make Dweller, and everything had Norden, so everything had 3 instant fusion and 2 Norden, so it was very easy for any deck to make Dweller, or most decks to make Dweller. So you were likely to see it, so therefore you needed just the best generic out to Dweller, which was Chalice. Now, like Cosmo, Monarchs, and BA as the best decks, you don't have to worry about them specifically making Dweller. So it's kind of like everything below that, and like Performer Pals are in a similar level of power as you now. So regarding like the decks that would make Dweller, you can think about what's good against those decks rather than I just need an out to Dweller, because Dweller isn't going to be an omnipotent presence in the format anymore. Like, I mean, it is, but not in terms of you playing Water, going to an event, playing 10 matches, you're going to see Dweller all the time. No, you're probably not. And against those decks, Dark Hole is just great. Like, against Perform the Pals and all that, Dark Hole is great. Kaiju Slumber is great. So, regarding that, it was just a question of would I rather have mass removal and lose a turn to Dweller, or not lose a turn to Dweller and have to kill all their stuff. And mass removal is good against those decks. Like, mass removal is good against Water. A very easy way to side for this deck is just like force them to go first and then side stuff like Dark Hole. System down is just cool, I guess. I don't play Kaiju Slumber, so I had room for it. Flying Sea is great. Fog King is great. This is kind of like the only way that you can play around Stormforth Ether in your turn. So while the it takes up your normal summon, which sucks, is a level 7, so you can drop a Tias or Megalolea and then make a Gaios with it or something. So Fog King's pretty cool. I remember when Fog King was played in Water, and I think Dragon Ruler for a bit, just because it's a like normal summonable level 7. But yeah, Fog King's great, a great card right now. TT is just the type of card that I wish was good, and it isn't. But if I were going to a big event, I might just hypothetically keep the side exactly as is, because like cards like Mind Control and TT, they might seem bad in our place, but they would come up. Like good cards always come up in the side. I would say that's a rule of thumb. which is again why a part of me was more inclined to just go with like Dark Holes over Slumbers, even though Slumber's more powerful, Dark Hole is more consistent. It just is what it is. Um, TT on a similar lines isn't isn't as good this format, but you know what you're getting with TT. And I would say TT Dweller is potentially a win condition as well. Um, Anything else that I forgot at this point? I don't think there is. I guess just like Brilliant Fusion. So the reason why I don't run Brilliant Fusion is because uh, it doesn't have any overt synergy with this deck. And I don't mean that normal summoning twice doesn't have any overt synergy with this deck, because obviously that does. But I mean that sending lights doesn't do anything for you, which isn't relevant to the fact that you're gaining a second normal summon, yes, but is relevant considering that pretty much every deck is playing Brilliant Fusion or can play Brilliant Fusion, and I think that Brilliant Fusion will be a very potent card this format. Um, I think that next ban list will probably see Brilliant Fusion getting hit, or that engine getting hit rather, and you know, may even see another adjusted list with that hit, because it is potentially game breaking. Like people say, oh, Upstart broke the rules of the game. The the presence of normal summoning multiple times per turn effects actually kind of is breaking the game, and isn't really fair considering the speed with which decks can do it. But regarding Brilliant Fusion in this, Brilliant Fusion sending a light actively helps a lot of decks. It helps Monarchs because you pitch the idea, you get a card back to your hand, or Trick Clown just makes it a free tribute fodder. You pitch Master Pen in uh, in Dracopals, and then Lazuli gets it back to your hand for free. So Brilliant Fusion in Monarchs is going to have an additional effect of add Monarch ST to your hand a lot of the time. In Dracopals, it's gonna have add Master to your hand a lot of the time, which is hugely relevant. Just getting a scale for free, like it's a rota for a scale, plus gain another normal summon. And those decks have normal summons that are more powerful than this deck as well. The one Prince I would equate to things like Skullcrow Bat Joker in terms of power. Sure, you can make that argument, but the follow up summon is gonna be like Undine or something, which isn't as powerful as a Monarch tribute summon or anything that they can do. So Brilliant Fusion, like in the same way that Instant Fusion has unique positive externalities to this deck that make Instant Fusion and Norden good for this deck and better than it is in any other deck. Brilliant Fusion isn't as good in this as it is in a bunch of other decks, which I feel limits the extent that you would want to make room for it again. You can allocate space trying to make this deck like a worse version of other decks, or you can just focus on what this deck does well. But yeah, I think that that's it. So I don't know. I'll see if I can get to number one or something. But yeah, I hope that that this made playing water a bit easier. But yeah, I'll see you around.